Bitcoin also is money for the people and by the people. So Bitcoin and democracy have something, identical.
From the new home of Bitcoin and all things crypto, Peckham, South London, I am Bitcoin by Amounts, and this is the Genesis Block Education Podcast. Welcome. I just want to say a big thank you to you. You download, listening to it on YouTube or any other platform. Just thank you. We appreciate your time and we appreciate your continued support. Guys, just please make sure you are liking, sharing, commenting, and spread it by word of mouth. Just tell your friends about me. Right, on to today's show. So I really wanted to get out earlier, but we are where we Bitcoin versus police. And it's the second part of our Can Bitcoin Fix Nigeria series. And just to give a bit of context, the reason why we've chosen Nigeria as a country is not only that my family originate from there and I go there quite frequently. I also think Nigeria is a great case study in terms of cryptocurrency and technology developments. So it's a country that I really think will be interesting to watch over the next few years and how it develops and how it integrates innovations such as cryptocurrency to fix problems it has. So unless you've been living under a rock or you just don't have any access to social media at all, it has been in the grip of massive protests known as SARS. And this following public outcry for the government to ban a special unit of the police known as SARS, aka Special Anti-Robbery, who have apparently been responsible for kidnappings, harassment, extortion, and extrajudicial killings. Basically, everything they were there to. On the 20th of October 2020, the process where the Nigerian army opened fire on peaceful protesters on the Lekki toll gate in Lagos State, which led to a number of casualties and deaths, numbers of which have not yet been confirmed. One of the major things galvanizing the protests first were mainly made up of youth and Nigeria's middle class is the usage of technology and technology galvanize and mobilize Bitcoin to fund. When one of the major protest groups, the feminist coalitions, had their bank accounts frozen, Bitcoin was used as an alternative to fund the protest. So in a nutshell, the censorship-resistant properties of Bitcoin is what's actually being used to help fund the protesters on the front line. And this is what we explore. In terms of a guest for this episode, I welcome back Rebecca Asseh, who is a journalist, activist, and cryptocurrency educator based in Nigeria, who specializes in teaching cryptocurrency in broken English, which is also known as Pidgin. Rebecca is a friend of the podcast, having been a guest before, but she's also been on the front line of the protest. As you're going to probably tell from her voice, she's still a bit shaken up from the incidents that unfolded on the night of 20th October. By tapping into her Nigerian resilience, she really wanted to come onto the show and share her views and her thoughts with us, and we're only too happy to have her. Now, for the hardcore Bitcoiners among us, this is probably not going to be the most Bitcoin technically focused show that you're going to listen to. But in my opinion, it's really important that we hear the various discussions that surround Bitcoin. Without Bitcoin's censorship-resistant qualities, Bitcoin has no value. And Bitcoin is fundamentally a protest. So without further ado, let's get on with the show. Over to you, Rebecca. Rebecca, how are you today? I hope you're well. Yeah, Rebecca, how are you?
I'm doing fine. I'm okay. I'm doing very well.
Now, it's really good to have you back on the show, especially considering the circumstances. But again, I think this platform, we talk about technology, we talk about cryptocurrency, we talk about Bitcoin, and recently we've been talking about those subjects from the lens of Nigeria. I think it's really important that we are looking at all aspects, and obviously these SARS protests which have exploded over the last sort of few weeks, it's really important that we are touching upon what's going over there and what impact cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin are having. Just to start off, I think a good point to start would be having a basic understanding for the listeners to understand what the SARS protests are about. Can you give a brief explanation as to what these protests are about, or how it started? Let's go to ground zero. How did these protests start?
Okay, the process to end SARS. SARS is an arm of the police. They are called the Special Anti-Robbery Squad. It has started way back since 2017. It's an on and off protest. But recently it just sparked off because people are tired of the police brutality, the extortion, the extrajudicial killings, and all, and it just blew off. Personally, I think what started off this protest was a killing that happened, I think, in Port Harcourt of a guy called Chibike Daniel. The guy was he was shot dead, and I think it was an up and coming musician, and then there was a video of the father crying, and lamenting, and that video touched the hearts of a lot of Nigerians, and that sparked off the protest. So it wasn't something that started today. Right. Something that has been, it's like just pent up anger against
Sure.
the police force and against the lack of system. Because, we hear that a policeman has been arrested. We don't see justice being carried out. So, and then if justice is actually carried out, why aren't the other policemen, acting cautious? Like, okay, justice has been carried out, so let me, pipe down or something. But it's just pent up anger against the lack of system.
So I've heard the NSARS protest for a few months before all of this happened. I follow Omoyele Sowore, who's a aspiring politician. Also, he heads up Sahara, and he's very on the forefront of sort of progress and progressive ideas within Nigerian politics. But just going back to SARS, why was this unit set up? What was the security situation in Nigeria that the government thought that they had to set SARS up?
SARS was set up, I think, in 1992
wow. Okay.
Stop robberies. There were lots of armed robberies going on in Nigeria, and then they needed a special squad to deal with this situation. So that was why it was set up. But I would say, in my own opinion, I feel that SARS, setting up SARS was not actually the needed thing. It was just killing the symptoms and not the disease.
Right.
We're basically treating the symptoms instead of the disease. So, but at that particular time, there were lots of robberies. Traveling from one point in Nigeria to another point was difficult. So there were a lot of kidnappings also. So it was needed at that time, and it's still needed now, actually. But it's just that it's now like they left what they were supposed to do, and then they started doing something else. So
right.
People feel, well, since robberies are not that frequent anymore, we don't see the need for you. But actually, there is still a need for SARS. But I think they just need to have a bit of I don't know how to describe, but that particular squad needs to have, let's say, lesser power than they do now.
Where were the SARS task force recruited from? Was it within the police? Was it within the army? How were they mobilized?
Basically, they're mobilized from. It's just like police recruits. You have people from anywhere can just get into the force. They could recruit them from the police force or from elsewhere. But basically, they were normal Nigerians.
Right.
Although some people will say that most of these SARS people are criminals, but that's really not true. They are just, normal police recruits.
I think there was an announcement, I can't remember from who, that SARS has now been demobilized. Is this an announcement that has been made many times before? Is this a promise that has been made many times before and that has been broken?
Fine. I think it's the fourth time that
Fourth.
it has been suspended, they had been disbanded, they had been, just different verbs.
Yes,
But
okay.
they are still operational. And what's worse is the fact that now we don't know if we should say is the SARS that are the problem or the police force itself.
Right,
So
okay.
basically, we are just tired of police brutality in totality. Like, we don't care whether it's the police, whether it's SARS, whether it's the army. We just don't want. We want to have right to live and right to be treated fairly.
Just in terms of my experience of going to Nigeria, there's always been sort of a narrative of, or a caricature of the Nigerian police being sort of incompetent, lacking training, and obviously corrupt. Has this violence aspect always been there? Or is this something that has intensified over the years?
It has always been there. When I was a child, if you want to scare a child into doing something, you tell the child that I'll call the police for you.
Right.
And then it scares them. So there's this fear and distrust of the police force.
Right.
You have an issue and you are scared to go to the police, and that is not supposed to be so. Domestic violence, you go to the police, they will tell you this family issue, you settle it amongst yourself. These are then issues of rape, you go to the police, the tendency of you getting blamed for getting raped is very high.
Yeah.
So these are some of the issues that we want to have addressed. So there's a distrust, there's a very, very huge distrust between the citizens and the police force.
So that's what kicked off the SARS protest. So just to kind of fire back on a few things around the police. Again, the police are Nigerian citizens, right? And we could both agree on that. So what is the average? So I've done my research, but I just want to hear it from you to corroborate my research. What is the average salary of a police constable in Nigeria?
So a police recruits, that is the lowest level.
Yeah.
Get as low less than $500. I think about 108,000 naira in a year.
108. Wow. And so that's what, $500 a year?
Yes,
less than.
Yes.
So
considering the fact that if we use the current price of dollar,
yes, of course.
Act as a measure. So the problem is that the salary is too little.
Yeah.
These are people who have children, and then there is no hazard fee. They don't have hazard fee. They don't have insurance. All they're entitled to is, let's say, their retirement fee and all that. And it's still not enough. They have children. They get married. They have to pay bills. It's not really easy raising kids and all that. But the salary is so little. So we kind of, over the years, people understood, and whenever you were stopped on the road, policemen are not supposed to act as we have vehicle inspection officers,
sure.
VIOs, the ones who are supposed to check for your particulars and all that. That is not the duty of a policeman. But you have roadblocks on the roads and everywhere, and the police are collecting money from you as little as
money,
just so you could pass by. Over the years, people are just give it to them. They will let you go. Because Nigerians are very resilient people. We don't let things get to us. We just keep moving. As long as it doesn't stop me from getting to my place of daily bread, I don't care. But over the time, it started getting worse, and and then it led to this point.
So we're saying they earn about under $500 a year, and these are people.
The lowest level.
And these are people essentially that are given a AK-45 and being told go out there and I mean, you're essentially creating a criminal, right?
Yeah. Because there's this idiom, an hungry man is an angry man.
Yes, totally.
You don't arm an hungry man, and they don't have regular police weapons, maybe a baton or a pistol. They have combat rifles, AK-47, and most of them don't even know how to handle these weapons, which leads to maybe accidental discharge. And once somebody dies by accidental discharge, nobody's disciplined for it. So, that's one of the biggest challenge. Get them the proper equipment, and then pay them more salary too.
Are we saying that? I guess a conversation between you and me. Are we saying that part of the cause of police brutality is essentially the directly linked to how police are underpaid and undervalued in Nigerian society? Would you say that's part of it?
That is part of it. That is really not the whole
Of course,
issue,
of course, of course.
because most times I think the police are a reflection of the society.
Yes.
But part of it is the fact that they are not well paid, and aside that, there is no system. There is no system. If there is a system of check and balances, then the police force will not get as powerful and as unruly as they are today.
And just to put some context in there, the average salary, so I was just looking at this morning, the average salary of a Nigerian senator is $500,000 versus a US senator, which is $175,000. So US politicians are paid much less than Nigerian politicians and have a much bigger GDP. So it just kind of gives a context of how the price of politics in Nigeria is, well, basically it's being consumed by the government. The majority of the budget goes to politicians, right?
Yes.
That's insane. Absolutely insane. Are there any people who are protesting on the side of the police? Because in the US, we had a Blue Lives Matter, which was, I guess, to discredit the Black Lives Matter movement. Is there a similar pro-police protest happening in Nigeria?
There will always be a side for and a side against. So there were some groups, who came up to say SARS, we're protecting them against cyber crimes and all that, and against robberies, that they want SARS. Now, that's not a problem if you want SARS. We are not actually saying that there should be no squad that will not deal with robbery and cybercrime. Cybercrime, that was why EFCC was created. There should be other groups to deal with them, but for now, end SARS and then set up a platform that the police force will get reformed. But humans will always be humans. We can't do anything about people like that.
What's happened in the last week? Because it seems to have been escalated. What are the key? I mean, obviously we know what happened on the 20th of October, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But can you just kind of give an overview of what's happened over the last week and where the protests are now?
Okay, over the last week, we saw Nigerian youths come together in a way that has never happened.
Yeah.
All my life, I've never seen Nigerian youths come together over a unifying platform that is not entertainment. We came together. There were donations made for people to get fed on the protest ground. There were donations made for people who had lost their loved ones, due to police brutality. There were donations there was this young lady that was an amputee. They made donations to get her a prosthetic leg in less than 2 hours.
Wow.
So it's just so the love, the unity was so great. And in that, during the protest, the donation link was revoked, so they had to revert to receiving donations by Bitcoin. And then somewhere in the midst of the protest, it got horrible. And then the police started shooting at the innocent protesters that were unharmed. holding the Nigerian flag. During the protest, lots of informations were going out that the Nigerian army will not shoot at you if you are holding the Nigerian flag. So,
Okay.
a lot of people were holding the Nigerian flags, and well, they were shot at, and the army denied shooting and said that the video that was made by DJ Switch, who happened to be live on that, she made an Instagram live video.
Wow.
And then the army said that the video was doctored, and so it's not valid, that it was she used green screen or whatever, and it was a fake video.
Wow.
And then sometime, was it on Tuesday or on Wednesday, the president gave a speech and asked everybody to calm down and that things were going to be fixed, and just asked us to get back to our normal lives. And a lot of Nigerians were just so demoralized and sad and everything. But I'm just going to just hold on to the fact that we came together and then we stood for something. That is just how I want to remember the protest, that we came together and then we fought for something in unity.
Where has the bulk of the protest taken place? Is it just in Lagos, or is it spread across the country?
It was spread across the country, but it started in Lagos. The bulk of the protest was in Lagos, which is why Lagos took the biggest hit when hoodlums hijacked the protest. But the protest started in Lagos, and then Abuja, they were protesting Delta states, they were protests in Ibadan, Oyo states, they were protests in Jos, they were protests in, I think they were protests all over Nigeria. It was just, people, the EndSARS protest was just like a ripple effect.
Yeah.
SARS was
network effect.
What we like to call the scapegoat.
Yeah.
And SARS was it. So, but it was just a protest against bad governance, a protest against a lot of things. We want a system that works. So that was just what the protest was.
What groups were on the forefront of this protest? Because there seems to be no leader. I don't think there should personally be a leader. It should be from the grassroots and from everybody across the board, young and old, male, female. But what were the key groups who were behind the protests?
Okay, for the protests, from the onset, there was no leader. Everybody wanted it to be a protest by the people, for the people. But I would like to say that a group that has been held accountable for the finances and all was the Feminist Coalition Group. They are a feminist group, a group for women, and then they have been so. In fact, they did something that Nigerians are not used to seeing, something that the government should be doing, but they aren't. They were so accountable, they were so transparent with all the funds received, and people knew exactly how much was spent on what and how much was left. And that is something we are not used to seeing as Nigerians. We are not used to having a government that is transparent. So I think that's the only group I would like to talk about. Because they were at the forefront of the finance aspect.
Why do you feel Nigerians or Nigerian youth stood up on this occasion? Because certainly I've heard it from sort of older Nigerians about Nigerian youth being docile and passive and just accepting of things. Why on this occasion did Nigerian youth stand together and stand up? What do you feel is different about this protest?
Like I said earlier, Nigerians are resilient people. Basically nothing gets to us. We are very happy people. We like to laugh, we like to have fun, but we also want to live. Nobody wants to die. Nobody just, we know we are all going to die, but at least not just getting shot and then nobody is held accountable for your death. So I think one of the reasons that sparked the protest was the fact that a lot of youths came to the realization that if we don't do something now, we are all going to end up dead. And as much as a lot of Nigerians would like to say they want to leave the country, we are over 200 million people. Which other country
Where do you want to go?
We
Yeah.
are so many. So where are we going to go to? The UK can't contain us. We already have a lot of Nigerians in the UK.
Too
We already
much.
have a lot of Nigerians in Canada.
Yeah.
So where are we going to?
Yeah.
And then the sad part that, if you leave, you have to come back. So are you still coming back? There are lots of people who traveled out from wherever they were and came back and still died. So we want a country that is safe for us to live. And then a lot of people are getting involved in tech. And then the sad part is the fact that, I don't know, it seems there's a break in transmission between the older and the younger generation about what technology is. It's so bad that, considering the electricity situation, where you have to be your own, electrical company.
Generator.
So a lot of people
Crazy.
are going solar way, so you don't have to, constantly put on generators
Sure.
and alert people to what you're doing, and then you stay home every day, and then they'll call the police on you because of cybercrime. Because the ideology is, if you have a laptop and then you are always at home, then you must be involved in cybercrime. And now the police
Really?
use this as an avenue. Yes, the police use this as an avenue to extort you. So you get extorted, people collect money from you, and it doesn't matter what you say, so long as they can see a conversation between you and somebody outside Nigeria. Well, you are involved in cybercrime, and then,
wow,
you have to pay, and then they'll let you go.
I don't want this to come out wrong, but I'll ask it anyway. So in terms of the SARS protest, obviously this was a protest against police oppression, and a lot of the stories were around people who either came from abroad, who had dreadlocks, who had laptops, who had things of value taken off them. It wasn't really about the fact that they don't have drinking water in their village or something a bit more basic. So were the protests coming mostly from middle class Nigerians, or was this across the class spectrum?
I think the protest started from middle class Nigerians,
Right.
but it got hijacked by the lower class, because the middle class wanted safe environments, a safe environment, and just allow us to live, do your job, and try to understand that I am not a criminal, and then just let things go through the right process. That was basically what they were asking for, the right process. When you ask somebody, okay, normally the police are not supposed to go through your phones, but it doesn't matter what you say. You can't tell them that they drag you into their vehicles and then take you to the police station, and sometimes they wouldn't even allow you call your lawyer. So that's how bad it is. So it started from the middle class,
Right.
but then everybody, with the exception of maybe the 1% wealthy class, everybody has had, an issue with the police.
Right.
Everybody. So basically, they started with dress the way you want to be addressed. And I'm like, okay, if you want people to dress the way they want to be addressed, you don't shoot at somebody just because they are not dressed in the way you want them to be. So you aren't supposed to have tattoos or have dreadlocks or, dress too richly. And the excuses just were baseless. They weren't sensible. So it started from the middle class, and
Right.
then it spilled over, and then the lower class then turned it into chaos. So right now it's chaos.
Right. Okay. So how much do you feel that the lower and middle class have to be united in order to see some sort of change?
The lower and the middle class have to be united. What I think Nigeria needs currently is more upper class, more middle class, and less lower class. Now, the problem we have currently is the fact that
poverty.
People, I think that I can't remember where I heard this from. The poor will eat the rich. I saw something like that. The poor will eat the rich. Now, there's a problem. The poor do not have access to the rich. They have access to the middle class.
Yeah.
So the poor will not eat the rich. The poor will eat the middle class.
Right.
And then the middle class are just barely getting by.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think in the eyes of most of those at the lower class, they feel once you have something that they don't have, then you are wealthy. And that is not how wealth is defined.
Right.
You know, you have a generator, you can give yourself electrical supply. I can't, then you are wealthy. That is not how wealth is defined. You have a car and I don't have a car, then you are that's not what defines wealth. But to them, that's what defines wealth. And so you will get attacked. So a lot of businesses have been looted, a lot of businesses have been burned to the ground, you know, just because of the protest.
Right.
And
right.
It started from hunger, from a point of hunger. These people are hungry, you know, they are angry, and they are lashing out at anybody. And they
yes.
don't care who.
Would you say that the protests have taken a direction that it wasn't expected, or have failed, or where is everybody now? What is everybody's stance?
The protest did not fail.
Mm-hmm.
The stance currently is we're going back to the drawing board, or I think the stance is to educate those at the grassroots level.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the lower classes. You have to educate them. You have to let them know that if you continue selling your votes, you are going to still remain here.
Right.
You know, there is nothing you can do about it. You are going to remain here. Now we are educating people. Know your right. It is your right to vote, and it is your right to vote for your conscience. You don't vote because they give you 500 naira or 5,000 naira for 4 years, and then you have to suffer. And there's always the tendency of re-election, you know, running for second term, and then you still vote that same person back into power. You are going to suffer. So that is what people are trying to do now. We are trying to go back to the grassroots, you know, educate more people, get more youth into the system, and try as much as possible to kick the old
cabal,
the old leaders out. That's going to be a very huge fight, but that's the plan. The plan is to get the people to know that it's your rights. The wealth in Nigeria does not belong to a particular set of people. It's for everybody, and it has to go round.
The Commonwealth, that is what it's called. So what was the 5-point manifesto of the protesters?
Just 5 requests and it's a simple request. You know, persecute the officers who have SARS first.
Yeah.
They persecute officers who have been accused of, you know, extrajudicial killings or human rights abuses. Persecute them. Then set up a platform to compensate families who had lost loved ones to the protest, and reform the police. So I can't remember the last one, but those are basic protests. Basic requests.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't asking for anything, you know, too big or anything impossible. We weren't asking for Mount Olympus. We just wanted simple things. You know, persecute the officers, and then they are saying we should give them 2 weeks and this is when they wanted to ban bikes in Lagos and end the livelihoods of people. It took them, they did it overnight. You know, just woke up next morning and people in Lagos were stranded. You couldn't go to work because, you know, your daily source of commute has been, you know, disrupted. Then why is it taking you this long to persecute officers who have been accused? The protest would have just ended peacefully and calmly if the government had just, you know, and, you know, giving the people what they wanted, just like that.
How much of this do you think is just the fact that Nigerians have to reform their own sort of consciousness about each other, just have a bit more respect for life and just appreciation for other Nigerians? And obviously, I'm on the outwards looking in. It looks to me as just Nigerians don't appreciate other Nigerians.
I'll say that's not true.
Okay.
Because, you know, I think that's the ideology that we grew up with, or that's the ideology that the upper class or the ruling class like to pass across.
Right. Okay.
You know, they always make it to seem like it's it's a case of one party against the other party, and that is not the way it's supposed to be. Although I do have some issues that I think those are just different issues, but currently Nigerians during this protest showed how much we love each other,
Right.
how much we understand the fact that if it is good for one person, it is good for the other person.
Yeah.
And basically, Nigeria is a communal society. Right from time immemorial, we have been a communal society. If you go down, history lane, you see that communities have contributed money to send, one of their sons or daughters out of the country, and when that person goes out, the person comes back and then help the others. Yeah. That is how we have always been. But the narrative that the ruling class has imputed, in our minds is the fact that one part is bad. They always try to bring the issue of
tribalism, yeah,
the issue of ethnicity into it, and that is not the case. The case right now is that we want a system that works. If the system works, if there are no checks and balances, even in the arms of government, there are no checks and balances. If there are checks and balances, things will work. So basically, it's not the issue that Nigerians don't love one another. We do. Nigerians are loving people. We love one another. It's just a case of, people are taught to hate. People were not born to hate each other.
Yeah.
They were taught hatred. So Nigerian, from my own perspective and from what I've seen these past few weeks, I don't think there is anybody that will tell me that Nigerians are not loving people. You needed to see how fast donations were made for people, how fast people responded, people who had their shops looted. Currently, they are raising for, and these are not governmental funds.
Yeah.
These are from individuals. Individuals are coming together and asking, if you know that your shop was looted, send a message to this person so that we could help you out. I don't know what else. What other word I can use to describe love other than that.
Fine. And so, did you feel when you were in the protest that you were fighting for the future of Nigeria? How important did it feel for you to be part of these protests as a Nigerian?
I had one thought. My dad was born in 1960s, and I was like, my dad must have protested, or my dad must have, been involved in the 1993 election protest or riot. And my dad is still alive, and then there is another protest going on. If we don't fix it now, by the time I'm in my 60s or in my 50s, I might still have to protest again. It doesn't make any sense. And we are still protesting against the same thing. So why don't we just, solve it once and for all, and then know that, well, in the future, if our children are going to be protesting about something, it's going to be something different. Maybe then our kids may have the leisure of protesting against climate change. Something else, except bad government against, need more about building a future where something different will happen. Even if there's going to be a protest in the future, it has to be a protest on something different, not something my parents protested about, I protested about it, and then my kids will continue the protest too.
Was there genuine shock that the Nigerian army opened its guns to its civilians? Was that something that the protesters thought they would never happen, or was there genuine shock in this day and age that they still go to that level? Were people surprised by that?
People were surprised, people were hurt. I think for that night, in fact, up till yesterday night, I was still crying because the whole incident has just been like, these are humans.
Yeah, totally.
We treat animals better. We have activists fighting for don't cage the chickens, range-free cows, people adopting dogs, people treating animals better. These are humans. So it was a very huge shock. A lot of people were crying. And today I also felt guilty. I left the house, I went to church, and I felt guilty. Like, these are people who should be alive right now, and then they're dead. And then there are claims that nobody died. And it's still baffling because I'm like, is this how much human lives are worth?
Hmm.
But there's a lot of shock. There's a lot of shock. There's a lot of shock.
Okay. So, what are the Nigerian politicians and I guess well, we could talk about Buhari, but I'd rather not. But what are the Nigerian politicians on the ground actually saying? Sort of heads of state, governors. How are they looking at this? Are they looking at this as Nigerians coming together at first, which is being taken over by, I guess, hoodlums in some aspects where there's been looting, or are they just trying to just brush this off as just noise? Did they see this as a change, a change in paradigm for the youth?
I think to the politicians, like a friend said, she said, we are fighting against people who have been in power for over 60 years.
Yes.
They have been in the game. They have played this game over and over again. They know how well to play the game. And we didn't want a big fraction of the cake. We just wanted something small, and they don't want to give it to us. So I just think politics wise, they are not taking us serious. So I think, but they know the power of unity right now. So, which is why like I said earlier, that this thing has nothing to do with tribe, and the Nigerians love themselves. We love ourselves rather, and I think we should just go through another direction. We should not play this game the same way they have always played it. So we are going to likely the youths are going to come up with another idea, another direction, other than what has always been. Another direction
So let's talk about Bitcoin and the end SARS protest. Could you kind of give a little overview of how Bitcoin has been used to sort of fund and support the front lines of these protests?
So when the protest started and then it got intense, there were reports that the links used for donations were revoked, and then some of the people were receiving donations through their bank accounts, that their accounts were frozen or something like that. So when that happened, people decided, let's go the Bitcoin way. Which is why, you said the middle class were the ones who were involved in the protest. So
Sure.
they went the Bitcoin way, and then people were donating by Bitcoin, and the protests continued. And then, the fear of the protests getting violent after the shootings of October 20th, people were scared. Maybe it was going to turn into something else, and then people started, keeping their money in Bitcoin. I had lots of people who asked me, Rebecca, please, how can I buy Bitcoins? Where people, if I had so many people that did not even have a Bitcoin wallet, Bitcoin addresses, they wanted to start buying Bitcoin, and I was like, okay. I hope this is not fear talking. You have to understand what you are getting into.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so it's just so, what it showed was the fact that, if the government, like I like to, like in an article I wrote recently, I said, democracy is government for the people, government of the people, by the people, and for the people.
Right.
Bitcoin also is money for the people and by the people. So Bitcoin and democracy have something, identical. So people want to be able to control their funds themselves. And I think what also prompted the fear was the fact that the 1993 crisis, a lot of people lost their properties, they lost their livelihoods and all that. And by the time they came back, I think they were giving about £20 or so. I think that was after the The 20 pound zone was after the Biafran war.
Okay.
So people lost their livelihoods. So trusting the banks that if something happens during this crisis and then it affects the banks, maybe banks get burnt down and all that, I might not get my money back.
Wow.
So I think that fear was what spurred people into buying Bitcoin, because they're afraid that I don't know what will happen to the banks. And if something happens to the banks, the likelihood of me getting my money back will be very, very low. So why don't I just go to Bitcoin, that is internet money, and I know that as long as I have my private keys, I can get back my money. So I think that is part of the reasons why, a lot of people went Bitcoin way.
So in the protest, did the censorship resistant value of Bitcoin become more important? The fact that no one could take over your money or have control of your money, did that become a really important factor for people?
Yes, the fact it was a very, very important factor. In fact, lots. If you follow the hashtag SARS on Twitter, you would see how excited people were. People were so excited about the fact that Bitcoin was being used. People were excited about the fact that now they know that this is a way to bypass the federal government and then have your money secured. But then, like I like to say, it's not something that is new.
No.
The people in Venezuela have been using this for a long time. People in Zimbabwe also have been using Bitcoin to, bypass inflation and all that. But it's something that was very new to Nigerians, especially, Bitcoin was something that was just, known to a selected few. Bitcoin even became more popular this year due to the pandemic, and
of course,
so anxious to make extra source of income, and the cryptocurrency got introduced to them through Ponzi scheme. But now people are getting to understand that Bitcoin is just more than a get rich quick scheme and all that.
So other than sort of Bitcoin, how much did technology and the youth's comfort with technology, how much did that prove as a means to kind of coordinate the protest and get everybody sort of aligned? Was social media imperative to the protest?
Social media was the reason why the protest started in the first place. But one thing I would like to say is the fact that what technology has shown is the fact that a lot of history must have been erased because people did not write it down. People did not capture 100%. That history.
Yeah.
And we can see it evident from what we have right now. If there were no technology, if there were no Instagram live video, if there were no videos, during the protest, people were using their cameras to capture the videos of police brutalizing people, we would not have heard, we would not have known what was happening. It might have just been, one-off incident that, somebody was killed, and, well, we would have brushed it off. But the videos and all just brought it to the forefront that we are actually up against something that has to go. So technology really helped. Technology helps in the fact that fundraising was fast and effective. Technology helped us to get fundraising so fast, get blood donations, because the announcements on social media, please, we need blood, we need donors, and people donated blood so fast. So technology, social media was a very, very important tool during this protest.
So in terms of the outside tech community, was there a lot of support? So I heard Twitter mentioned quite a bit. Was there sort of a lot of support from the outside global community for these protests?
A lot of people in diaspora also helped. There were lots of donations coming in from people in diaspora, and then there were lots of support because they also started their own protests in whatever countries.
Yeah, it's happening. Yeah, all over the
It helps to see the fact that even while we're protesting at home, people out there were also protesting. They were also lending their voices, and it was a really huge source of encouragement. But from what I could see is the fact that people outside, they also want to come back home and they want to come to a safe environment. So that was also key to them protesting, because it's not just them protesting for us back here, they're also protesting for themselves. Because if Nigeria is a better place, we will have better representation out there. We'll have, other countries respect us as not just as individuals who are intelligent and hardworking, but as individuals who come from a country that has a system that works, and a country that would help us in time of need. So I think that was part of the reasons why we had lots of support from Nigerians in diaspora.
Whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's cryptocurrency, do you feel that within the youth that there is the innovation to come up with a plan over the next few years to contest the cabal?
A lot of people, in fact, during the course of the protests, they came up with, I think, was it YDP, Youth Development Party? They had the logo. It was just so exciting. And people were like, they want the youth to rule. I think I saw another one yesterday. That was Youth Progressive Party. So people want the youth to lead. So I just think something good has already come out of this protest. One, we have realized that Nigerians are loving people. Nigerians can come together in unity, and we have realized that tribe is not the problem.
No.
The problem is against the political elites and the people. It is not, one tribe versus the other tribe, even though that is what they always try to make it seem. They always try to pit us against each other, but that is not the case. The case is about the political elites and then the people. That is what the case is about.
Has there been an increase in demand for Bitcoin as a result of the protests? Because there's protests currently going on in Belarus, which is pretty much fighting against the same situation as in Nigeria, and Belarus has seen a 2K premium on the price of Bitcoin. Is that something that's been seen in Nigeria? Is there being sort of increased demand and increased price of Bitcoin?
Yes, there's been an increase in the price of Bitcoin, but I really don't know if I would say that the protest was the reason why um, the Bitcoin price increased, because simultaneously while the protest was ongoing, voting elections were ongoing in America,
Yeah, of course.
and we really can't say what would have caused the spike in price. But I would say that demand for Bitcoin in Nigeria definitely increased. So there was a lot of demand for Bitcoin in Nigeria. People are now, in fact, today somebody asked me about most of them don't understand what it is, so they call it online money. So
Okay.
he heard that I was into online money, so I had to like, online money, can you specify? Do you mean Ponzi schemes? Because I'm not involved in any Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
So you have to let me know what you mean by online money. He said, it's coin, one coin. So I said, oh, Bitcoin. He said, yes. I said, okay. Well, Bitcoin is money.
Yeah.
And it's money online, so I guess you can call it online money. So a lot of people are interested in Bitcoin, and I think the demand increased, but we cannot say if the EndSARS protest was the reason why demand in Bitcoin increased.
Now people have seen the power of Bitcoin and the utility of Bitcoin. There's an opportunity to train and upskill youth on how to use Bitcoin and its power. You think that opportunity has created itself?
I think the opportunity has always been there, but now it will, bring the opportunity to a wider range of people.
Yes,
so
totally.
Right now, I think people who have always been talking about Bitcoin in Nigeria, people who have always educated people about Bitcoin in Nigeria, can now have, a wider range of audience to talk to them about Bitcoin. But I don't think it has created a new opportunity. There has always been an opportunity to, trade or talk about Bitcoin. There's always a reason to talk about Bitcoin or cryptocurrency in Africa.
Full stop.
There's always a reason.
Yeah. So what is your view moving forward? as a result of these protests? What are the immediate next steps for the youth of Nigeria?
I can't say for, the larger group. I can't say for others. But for me, the next step, a lot of people are planning to leave Nigeria. I really don't want to leave Nigeria. I love Nigeria. I love it's home to me. It's the only home I've known all my life. All my loved ones are here. And even if I want to leave Nigeria, I don't just want to run away. But for me, moving forward, I think the next step will be educating people. Not just about financial wealth alone. You have to educate people about their rights as humans. You have to educate people about their rights as citizens of Nigeria. A lot of people do not know that we employ our politicians, that the politicians are employed by us. They are our servants. We actually tell them what to do. A lot of Nigerians do not know that we can recall a sitting senator. You can recall a senator and say, oh, since you're not working, come home. We don't need you. Let somebody else do the job. So education is key. Just the same way we keep saying that educating people about Bitcoin matters. You have to educate people about Bitcoin. Simultaneously, like I said, Bitcoin and democracy, they have the same connotation. So we have to educate people about Bitcoin, about cryptocurrency, and then we also have to educate them about the government, about politics, about knowing their rights, about not selling their votes. If you trade Bitcoin, you can make the same money that the politicians is going to give you at the polling units to sell their votes. So why don't you trade Bitcoin and then vote your conscience?
Do you think the protest will be something that we will see more of, like defiance of how Nigeria is currently working? I mean, certainly from my parents' generation, I've never seen my parents get up and protest. I've heard them complain, but I've never seen them get up. This is something very different. Do you feel that the youth will be emboldened to get up and do it again and continue to do it in a peaceful way? Would they be scared off by the incidents of the 20th? Are the youth ready to die for this?
Well, after the presidential speech, a lot of people started saying they want to leave. So it's just obvious to see that the reason why our parents didn't protest was a case of broken spirit. They broke their spirit. And when your spirit is broken, you can't fight. So the only way we can be able to fight back again or demand for what is rightfully ours is if we can preserve our spirit. And these past few weeks has shown that, it's really, really not easy to fight something that you don't even understand. It's really not easy. So the only thing we can do currently is to keep hope alive, keep our fighting spirit, and stay alive. Because there's a saying that he who fights and runs lives to fight another day. So that is the only thing that we can do. We have to keep our fighting spirit. We have to keep hope alive. We must not give up. Definitely, definitely, somewhere in the future, Nigeria will be the country of our dreams. We will have the Nigeria of our dreams.
So, Rebecca, if people want to donate and support the End SARS protest, do you have any links or details of any groups where people can either, yeah.
The Feminist Coalition group been receiving donations, but I think they stopped receiving donations.
Sure.
So I don't think there's any donations being made currently, but they still have some GoFundMe, for people who lost their lives,
Yeah.
who lost loved ones. They do have some GoFundMe links for them. But the official feminist coalition groups that was receiving donations, I think they stopped receiving donations currently.
No, I just want to thank you for just making time out. I know it's quite an emotional time in the country. It was really sort of important to engage with you and just really get a feel for what's happening. But Rebecca, thank you. I'm going to leave the last word to you.
Can Bitcoin change Nigeria? We asked this question the last time, and I think we can see Bitcoin can change Nigeria. Bitcoin can change Nigeria. People can see that they have the right to hold their finances in their hands, and it's a very, very huge turnaround, saying that people can have their money and not be afraid of war, that even if war breaks out, my money is safe somewhere. So bitcoin bitcoin is just, I don't just know how to describe it, but it is a wonderful thing. And it has shown that people can also come together to create a change for themselves. And I think I have to say a very huge thank you to Satoshi Nakamoto for having the courage to publish the Bitcoin white paper. And I also say big thank you to people who started the NSAS protest, because it takes a lot of courage to stand up in the face of corruption, in the face of brutality. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Satoshi. We are grateful.
Thank you, Rebecca. Much appreciated, and always good to talk to you. Hopefully, when we catch up next time, it will be more on a more positive vibe, but I look forward to it anyway. Take care. Wow. What do you think? Powerful stuff. It's really refreshing and important to get a view from someone who's not just reporting, but someone who's actually on the ground of the protest. And I really feel we got that today. I'm going to be honest, as someone who goes to Nigeria quite frequently, and as someone who is of Nigerian origin, I would never have put police brutality on the top of the list of Nigerian problems. And I mean, it's clearly a real problem, and it's clearly always been a problem. And it's probably something that I didn't really know. I mean, obviously, I noticed police taking money off of people. That's standard. But in terms of murders, extrajudicial killings, on the level that I've heard in the last few days or few weeks, I am actually astonished. But that said, I do feel these protests are much more than police brutality. I almost feel as if police brutality is being used as a conduit to protest against so many other things, like corruption, lack of direction, lack of leadership, so many problems which are boiling at the surface. Nigeria is like many other places in the world which are going through significant changes, where there is protest going on. And just to reel off a few: Venezuela, Belarus, Hungary, Turkey, Lebanon, all these countries are experiencing chronic devaluation of their currencies and basically under the thumb of authoritative governments. So there's a lot going on. Change in Nigeria is a must. Nigeria is not sustainable how it's currently running. And that's based on its population. Some say it's 200 million. I would probably say if you actually did a real census and counted people, it would probably be closer to 300 million. There's a lot of people there. Also, the demographic. I think it's around 70% of the population is under the age of 30. That's insane. And when you have a country with a struggling GDP and chronic poverty, it's simply unsustainable. And it will probably topple over if there is not radical changes soon to how the country's governed. That's just a given. This is probably the first time I've seen a Nigerian youth protest. I think it's the first time many Nigerians, even my dad's generation and my parents' generation, have probably seen Nigerians stand up. And there are a lot of older Nigerians who are standing up from the sidelines cheering, which is good. And cheering on the youth, because I think this is something that they've wanted to see happen. They've wanted the youth stand up and be counted and take control of their destiny. And I think that's what we're seeing happen now. And the youth have managed to do this through tribal or ethnic lines, across the whole of the wealth divide. And they've managed to come together. And I think a lot of young Nigerians and Nigerians in general are probably shocked by how they've come together. So I don't see this going away. I see this being a continual thing. The protests may have died down, but I would imagine what you are going to be seeing is the youth going away to lick their wounds and plot and plan. And they're probably going to come back for the elections or something similar in the next few years. This is all about leadership. This is all about progression. And as I said in my podcast a few weeks ago, as a conclusion, Nigerian youth are innovative, hardworking, resilient, aspirational, and they are tech savvy. So technology is really going to play a big part in whatever change that country sees. So technology, by technology, social media, yes, but also Bitcoin, because you've got to fund your movement. Bitcoin is protest. And I always say that Bitcoin is protest. And Bitcoin is strongly linked to democracy. What you're probably going to see as a result of these protests is a growing number of youth who strongly believe in the revolutionary power of Bitcoin. Bitcoin's censorship-resistant quality is fundamentally what gives Bitcoin value. Governments can't stop Bitcoin. They can attack protesters, they can inflict violence upon them, they can even put them in jail and torture them, but they can't stop Bitcoin. And they can't stop people putting Bitcoins in the hands of people on the front line. So it's really important that we circulate stories around where Bitcoin is being used to uphold democracy. It's being used in a fight for freedom. Because again, that's fundamentally what gives Bitcoin value. Back to the protest. I hope and pray that whatever change happens in the country happens peacefully, and whatever change occurs brings about a fruitful and progressive country. Like I said, Genesis Block Education will be watching closely. The final word of thoughts and prayers goes out to the protesters and victims of SARS. To wrap up, please check my show notes if you want to read. And as a final reminder, please make sure you like, share, tell your friends about me. I'm Bitcoin by Malks, and this is Genesis Block Education.